When Tank Girl arrives there to save her friend, she sabotages the sex worker's dressing room. There's a hologram of the perfect female image, instructing her to shave, pierce, and dress the way the male clientele wants them to look like. Tank Girl is appalled when the shaver is thrust out and instead grabs whatever she likes. She does not submit to the patriarchy and instead flips the script. She creates her own look and controls her identity, not allowing any male to subject her to their fantasy. Even though the film is overlooked, this scene sets the stage for the future. It births a new genre that focuses around individual femininity. The critics from the 90s, primarily men, blew off Tank Girl and deemed it an unsuccessful film. Critics from today view it as the exact opposite. It pioneered female strength in film, as critic Megan Carpenter soon reveals. She's also loudly positive and perhaps most daring for 1995. Explicitly embodies the third wave feminist idea, as seen in the liquid silver dressing room sequence, that you can pick and choose from the available feminine ideals to construct your own idea of what's beautiful to you, for you, and not simply to please men. Throughout the film, Tank Girl ridicules water and power soldiers with sexual remarks. She embraces her body and even uses it as a weapon, breaking men's necks while seducing them and taunting Kesley when he's in a dominant state. In this fan art, we see her using missiles as a bra, symbolizing the use of her body as her own weapon that only she can control. Manners and Rutsky strengthen this theory, quoting, "As we have noted, representation of women in these films includes ironic reproduction of perverse images of women, although such images manifest themselves somewhat differently in the two films. One tendency in Tank Girl involves playing off common cinematic images of female helplessness and women as spectacle, or of sexuality represented through allusions to stripping, whether it in the stocking snipping episode or with Tank Girl's prosthetic bomb breast. She doesn't possess excessive curves or appeal to the male fantasy like the likes of Black Widow or Wonder Woman. Instead, she inspires strength through feminism and sexuality. In these pictures, we witness a cosplayer in that same missile uniform. These paratexts were inspired by the theme Tank Girl revolves around, the dismantling of the patriarchy at the expense of male audiences and male producers is a step towards a progressive future where female characters don't have to subject themselves to sexual appeal. The posters, fan art, and cosplays prove my next point, that Tank Girl had a large impact on feminist genre in film. The critics during the 90s were mostly men, and seeing the Tank Girl character take on this role perplexed them. It led to the film being underappreciated. The film inspired the directors that were looking to create stories without sexually exploiting women. At the beginning of the 21st century, female-led films began to become popular and critically acclaimed. One of these films is Quentin Tarantino's Kill Bill. We are introduced to the bride and realize what a badass she is. Her witty one-liners on hunger for violence reflects Tank Girl's themes. Uma Thurman brings to life a character that kills men while traveling in the pussy wagon. The action sequences Tarantino directs for her are rare in Hollywood. It's reminiscent to Tank Girl jumping out of trailers and charging into battle waving guns and screaming insults. Both characters pointed their middle fingers at the patriarchy and proved that they can very much be action stars as well without having to sexualize their bodies. Tarantino's choice to embrace the feminist genre in the likes of Tank Girl would have been impossible if Talalay had not created her underappreciated cult film. The biggest impact Tank Girl had in today's feminist-based action genre was an iconic DC character. After the release of Suicide Squad in 2016, the Harley Quinn fanbase blew up. In that year, it was the most popular Halloween costume, and it still remains an icon that has led to her having her own film and starring in other DC movies. Margot Robbie's character, however, was not pulled out of thin air. She did have comic book origins, but her personality, actions, and dialogue were heavily influenced by the Tank Girl film. Crazy accents, vile language, and the use of sexual appeal as a weapon is something that Rachel Talalay created. Harley Quinn merely reflects and extrapolates Tank Girl's personality. It's amazing to see the progress femininity has taken in Hollywood. The age of submission and hypersexuality among women has been replaced with intelligence and independence. While the 90s was far too early to have a character such as Tank Girl, we can now embrace female leads who take after her. There might be a future for the original feminist hero though, as Margot Robbie has recently bought the rights to Tank Girl in hopes of a reboot. These genre trends from Tank Girl prove that to this day the film impacts the demeanor of female leads and the genre itself. The original smart-mouthed feminist role is attributed to Tank Girl, and while she isn't the role model that feminine fans look up to, she remains the blueprint. In addition to being the first comedic, badass female comic book hero, Tank Girl was one of the first female-directed superhero films, a concept that Marvel and DC would later apply to Wonder Woman, Captain Marvel, Birds of Prey, and Black Widow. Tank Girl will never be able to surpass any Marvel or DC popularity comparing it to their female characters, but those films would not be here today without Rachel Talalay's Tank Girl.